Caucus of Maryland, the woman who's put this all on. And she's also the senator of the 44th Legislative District in the city of Baltimore, Senator Verna Jones. How you doing today?
Hello, how are you, Hassan?
Oh, I can't complain. Wonderful weekend. I was here yesterday. Thursday, you had a youth day. Today's the second day. How's everything been going in your
It's been going great. It's been going great. I think the workshops, there's a lot of very exciting exchange between the individuals. The economic development workshop is about opportunities, how businesses can grow and prosper. The health workshop, bringing individuals in, talking about health disparities and how we can kind of close the gap on issues. The educational workshop, closing the gap. The law and justice, looking at alternatives to incarceration and really dealing with the substance abuse problem, and instead of warehousing people, really trying to find creative alternatives. And then we have the environmental justice, really looking at how we can combat those issues that are plaguing so many African American communities, environmental issues. So I think it's going well.
Well, I want to first, I should have said this in the beginning, congratulations on your re-election in
Thank you.
September. So we're past that. Now you can focus on the next 4 years and what you're going to bring to the 44th District. But you have you have 2 years of being the chair of the Black Caucus. What's your vision for that?
Yes, well, first off, I still have an election in November. I do have an opponent. And so I have to take everything seriously, but thank you for congratulating me thus far. My vision is to really build strategic alliances with other statewide organizations that are interested in the same issues that the caucus is interested in. That's one. And then because we sometimes conflict and it's unnecessary, there is enough for everyone to do, and if you work collaboratively, I think more can get done. Another is to keep putting a sort of agenda together. We've had a very good and successful legislative agenda over the last decade that I have been involved with the caucus. I've worked as economic development chair, and then I did the weekend last weekend, and then being elected chair this year has been very exciting, and it's just bringing the people together to do the work that needs to be done. There's also some internal restructuring to really refocus our vision for the caucus and to have everyone to have input into that. But we have, in the 5 substantive areas, economic empowerment, environmental justice, as well as education and law and justice and health. They've been those have been our 5 primary areas that we've been working in, and we've passed key legislation in all. We've had a lot of economic development legislation to empower small minority businesses. As far as the Thornton legislation, we were key on that. Funding historically Black colleges, university and colleges, we've been at the forefront of that. Voting rights, we've been at the forefront of that. So we always put an assertive agenda together, and it's just about making sure that everyone has opportunity to have input into that.
Speaking of legislation, have a little bit over 2 months before the session starts. How you feeling? You ready?
Yeah, well, today's gonna be very helpful because it's going to be framing the issues. It's coming from the communities that are most affected, and then we're going to have the retreat of the Legislative Black Caucus, and yes, I'm excited. Yesterday with the Youth Summit, we looked at financial literacy. That's a huge issue with our youth. And so we're looking at ways of making sure that that financial literacy integrated into the curriculums within our public school system. So I'm excited. I'm really excited about that.
Well, you heard it. She's excited. That's the chair. Anytime the head is excited, the body chooses to follow most of the time. So you heard it. Senator Verna Jones from 44th District, chair of the Legislative Black Caucus in Maryland, and we'll be right back.
I'm joined by a 12-year mayor from the city of Baltimore, the former mayor of the city of Baltimore, and the current dean of the Howard University School of Law, Mr. Kurt Schmidt. Now, what brings you up to Annapolis today?
Well, the Legislative Black Caucus has taken a very progressive position in looking at a wide range of problems and trying to come up with some strategies to move things forward in a very positive way in our community. One of the issues has to do with alternatives to incarceration. And when you're talking about that, you're really talking about the drug problem. And for me, I've been a long-time critic of the war on drugs, but also I'm the chairman of the National African American Drug Policy Coalition. And this is a coalition that's basically dedicated to moving the strategy on the war on drugs to saying that the war on drugs should be a public health war, not a criminal justice war, and that would be more effective in helping to improve lives in our community.
Okay, for 12 years you fought that fight in the city of Baltimore.
Absolutely.
Now you're in Washington, D.C. Is there any difference in it, or is it still the same fight?
Well, it's both in some respects, because we still see an awful lot of slaughter in our community because of the drug prohibition. But what we are seeing that's different is that there's more of a recognition that you can't incarcerate your way out, you can't arrest your way out of the drug problem. You just can't. People who are incarcerated are going to come out again, and you got to make sure people are going to be better coming out than they are going in. So you need treatment, you need much more treatment, but you also need to get to people before they are incarcerated. So what I try to do is to say to both liberals and conservatives, drug treatment is cost effective, it works, it improves lives, and it also makes communities safe. And that's a message that I think is starting to get more resonance than it was 12 years ago.
Absolutely. Well, you fought the good fight. We appreciate everything you do. No, you have to go, but we want to honor you and thank you for keeping up the fight, even after being the mayor of such a great city and doing such a fine job as a man coming up here today and speaking on behalf of it.
Well, our students at the Howard Law School are going to be the next wave of soldiers in the fight, and look for them out there. They're going to be great leaders.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Sir. Okay.
And we're back. I'm joined with the parliamentarian for this year's, in the next 2 years, Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland, as well as the rising star of Baltimore City, the senator from the 41st District, Senator Lisa Gladden. How you doing?
How you doing?
Oh, I can't complain. First of all, congratulations on your re-election.
Thank you very much.
So you can concentrate on the next 4 years now.
Absolutely.
Now we're in the second day of the weekend, Legislative Black Caucus Weekend. How do you see it, and what do you hope to accomplish coming out of this weekend?
I think there are two parts that we are creating in these different sessions in the Legislative Black Caucus Weekend. The first is that we're educating the public, and we're also educating, I think, legislators in terms of what our agenda as the African American legislators should be next year. We need to be prepared. This is a critical time, I think, for the Black community. It's a critical time, I think, for the state of Maryland as a whole. And to educate the legislators and then to educate the public, to tell us exactly, or to hear from the public what's important, what issues are being confronted here in Maryland, I think are important. And so what you see, I think, in some of these sessions, we had the drug policy session just now with Mayor Kurt Schmoke, and he raised, I think, issues that have not been perhaps addressed in Annapolis previously. And as we try to deal with crime across the state, we deal with the cost of incarceration, we deal with the high level of addiction in Maryland, I think that some compassionate relief might actually come out of legislation that we're going to create based on this summit today. So I'm looking forward to whatever we can create out of this.
Now, you're a rising star, went straight from delegate to senator. I mean, you've been the star of the city of Baltimore. I know in the past 2 years you've put in wonderful legislation in voting rights protection acts, you and Delegate Rosenberg. What can the 41st District constituents expect of you this upcoming session?
The same hard work that they've seen over the past 8 years. There is so much work to be done in Baltimore City and particularly in the 41st District, and we're going to see lots of legislation. I raised a question today in our workshop regarding pretrial drug treatment. I'd like to see if we can perhaps find ways that we can finance drug treatment for people who really need it. And that if we can do that, you'll see that as part of my legislation. Every year I bring in a repeal bill to repeal the death penalty. You'll see that again this year. And you will begin to see the same kinds of legislation that I've continued to push forth. The crystal meth bills, you'll see it again. We need compassionate address on certain drug crimes. And I hope to do that again this year. You'll see a lot of work because I think that the constituents in the 41st District demand it and they deserve it.
Oh, I absolutely do, and you've put in that work in those 8 years, as you said. Senator has promised to sing us a song. Can we
I do not sing. My mother will kill me if I start to sing.
Well, there you hear. She's the parliamentary of the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland, but more importantly, she's the senator out of the 41st District, the leading senator of the city of Baltimore, Senator Lisa Gladden. Thank you so much for coming on.
That's sweet. Thank you.
No problem.
That's good. You make
And
it.
we're back with the chair of the Law and Justice Subcommittee and leading delegate in the 43rd District, Delegate Kurt Anderson. How you doing today?
Fine, man. How you been doing?
I'm just right.
Good seeing you.
Congratulations on your re-election.
Well, thank you very much.
Focus on the next 4 years now.
Yep.
But Law and Justice Subcommittee, very interesting topic today. We had good dialogue, and I know it's still going on.
Excellent.
Give us your insight.
Well, you see, we have this problem with regard to the use of drugs, and people seem to think that all the other things are the big problem, like they need more lighting in the streets, they need more police officers, my car was broken into, I don't feel safe in my community. Those things are all just symptoms of this huge problem that we have, this war on drugs. And we've been fighting this war on drugs for 40, 50, almost 100 years, and it hasn't changed. More people get incarcerated, sentences get longer, but there's still a war on drugs. Every time you lock somebody up for this war on drugs, somebody else comes right in their place. So we got to come up with a change, and that's what we're doing in this committee hearing today. Look, drugs are going to be used by people regardless. We need to make sure that the people who do get hooked on drugs, get hooked on cocaine and heroin, have the treatment available to get off. Because if we don't have folks using the drugs, or at least the numbers of people using drugs, we won't have this tremendous problem, I think, that we have in Baltimore City with all this drug violence.
So, 2 years you'll serve as this chair. 4 years you have in the 43rd District. What's your vision for those next 2 and 4 years?
My vision is for the entire state of Maryland, just not my district.
Okay.
We have an entire generation of young people who are being swept up and being destroyed by this drug problem. People are getting records, their lives are being ruined, they can't get jobs, they don't get into school. That's just on the end of it, of the young folks. But then we have another entire generation, the older folks, who don't enjoy their homes, who don't go out at night, who don't, they're afraid to live in their community. All because we have decided that drugs should be illegal. And therefore, our young African-American people, mostly, get put in jail. So my vision is to try to solve both problems at the same time. And that is provide treatment, get people off of drugs, take away the competition, get these young people back into things that they ought to be doing, because there won't be anybody buying drugs if everybody has, gotten off of drugs. So that's the dream, but that's what we got to work towards it. It's not going to happen tomorrow or 08 or 09, but we got to take little steps towards that solution.
A little over 2 months left to the session begins. You looking forward to it?
Looking forward to every session because it's a brand new beginning. We'll have a new governor. We'll be able to make inroads in some of these areas that nobody's ever talked about before. Kurt Schmoke talked about this 10, 12, 15 years ago, and they booed him. They laughed at him. Well, they're not laughing at him anymore. This is a situation that's working in California, that's been tried in Texas, and they are saving money and they're saving lives, so we got to try it too.
Delegate Kurt Anderson, 43rd District Chair, Law and Justice Subcommittee for the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland. Thank you so much for all the fighting that you do.
All right, man.
And I'm joined by the powerful senator from the 47th District. She's also the secretary of the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland, and as well as the chair of the education workshop that we have going on today, Senator Gwendolyn Britt. How you doing?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, not a problem. It's always an honor. I mean, you've done so much for your district and the people of your district, but not only that, for the people of this state. And I just wanted to see where you were at with the educational committee that you had today, that you're chairing. How's it going, and what's your expectations?
Well, the education workshop, I am pleased to say, is talking about a topic that is controversial for not only Prince George's County, but the entire state, and that is the high school assessments, or the HSAs, as has been referred to. We see it as a prospective looming problem that will affect those students who graduated in 2009, especially amongst African Americans and Hispanics, the minority populations, where the outcomes from the high school assessments may be so significant in the failure rate that we will have thousands of students who will come out of school from the 12th grade without a high school diploma. So we're talking about that in the education workshop in terms of, number one, should that be the only test that measures success as an exit exam? Number two, what are the things, if the test remains, what are the things that we as a county and as a state have to do to ensure that students, in particular African Americans and Hispanics, and those who are on free and reduced meals, the poverty level, what do we have to do to ensure that all of those students have the resources that they need? Teachers, staff, buildings, class size, all of those kinds of support mechanisms and resources to ensure that they have a good outcome. And it's not an easy subject to talk about because so much of it sounds like institutional racism. So much of it sounds like there's some failures. There's some failures at both the state and the local level in terms of curriculum and the kind of curriculum that is aggressive enough to require students to excel and achieve. So it's an interesting discussion. We have Dr. He from the Department of Education. We have Mr. Mark Woodard from the Advocacy for Children, Maryland Advocacy for Children organization. We have two gentlemen from Baltimore City Schools who are going to talk about this afternoon. We're going to talk about what Baltimore City is doing in preparation for 2009. And we have someone from Prince George's County who's going to talk about what we've been doing in Prince George's County because we're concerned about it, about the economic impact it's going to have on our county, about the inability to provide businesses who come to Maryland looking to hire high-quality, technologically prepared students, and our inability to provide them with those workers.
Well, yeah, I mean, education is definitely vital in the state of Maryland. If you look at the polls, it's the #1 issue raised amongst the citizens all across the state. As you know, you represent Prince George's County, Baltimore City, the two questionable school systems in our state as far as funding and having the proper materials to have these kids learn at a quality base of education instead of just adequate. So we want to thank you definitely for taking on that fight because it's a big fight.
It really is.
It really is. Now, congratulations on your victory.
Thank you.
Re-election, you're looking at the next 4 years. I know there's a general coming up in 2 weeks, but you're looking at the next 4 years.
Yes,
So a little over 2 months left before the session starts. What's your vision for this upcoming session in the next 4 years?
Well, definitely we'll continue to focus on education from my perspective. We do have, of course, some seniors issues to deal with. We have the utility rate increase that kicked in, and then the prospect of what do we do to ensure that seniors as well as others who are on fixed incomes or who are at a level where they are not able to absorb the rate increases, plus making sure that we have a public service commission that is consumer friendly rather than the opposite. So I know that those will be a couple of things that we'll face as a legislature. And going into it for me, I'll also continue to focus on health issues as far as African Americans and the disparity issues with not only health and education, but other areas as well. So those will be some of my primary focuses going in.
Sounds good, sounds good. Senator Gwendolyn Britt from the 47th Legislative District, which is in Prince George's County. As you see, she's here fighting at the Legislative Black Caucus Weekend here in Maryland. And we'll be right back. And we're back. It's been a long day here at the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland. We just got out of a wonderful workshop dealing with reentry and the voting rights being restored to those formerly incarcerated. And I'm sitting here with a young man who's been a long-time civil rights activist, a community leader. He's the executive vice president of the Montgomery County NAACP, the president of Progressive Maryland's board, and I mean, just an overall fighter for the state of Maryland, Mr. Albert James. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad to be here.
How do you think? What do you think about the workshop today? What's your
The
thoughts?
workshop was excellent. The workshop brings us back into focus as to what the opportunities are for this upcoming legislative session and what our jobs are in terms of preparing our legislators and other activists in terms of protecting and preparing our citizens.
Now, I know that the NAACP state conference is today, and you're on your way down there, but you found time to come up here to fight here in Annapolis and then go back down to Baltimore and fight again. What is the significance of the NAACP today, and how can they push some of these legislators to get the right thing done?
We are the only organization that has the total resources and the scope of knowledge that allows our young people to become involved in the political process and then work with legislators in our communities to project the needs that to project laws, in fact, that need to be accomplished, to be put into place. Our legislators are doing a great job down here. We believe they need assistance with regard to knowing what some issues are and knowing how they affect our community. We also believe that we need to have young people now believe in our legislative process. Voting is a critical piece of that, and participating in the whole political arena is a strong part of citizenship. And we believe that that's important, and that's why I came down here today.
Now, speaking of the political season, we're just wrapping up a crazy one here in Maryland. Got through the primaries. We have about a week and a half left before the general election. How do you see this past election season? How does it, how has it affected us as a community, as African Americans? What's your insight on it?
The critical piece of any electoral process are the issues, and how the candidates bring the issues out, and also how the citizens ask and raise the issues to the candidates. I am somewhat concerned when we don't have candidates talking about juvenile justice. I am somewhat concerned when we don't have candidates talking about what they're going to do to put textbooks and funding in Baltimore City, on the Eastern Shore and in Prince George's County. I am somewhat concerned when we talk about recidivism rates and job training for ex-offenders and for also our youth. I believe there are a lot of questions that still need to be asked. I believe that after the political process is over, we as a community need to go forward and still press on our legislators and any elected official to do the job that's needed.
Okay, now we got a little over 2 months before I know you'll be up here for 90 days fighting for the people. Can we get a little insight? What's the fight this year? Is there any particular piece that you'll be focusing on, or will be a various amount? I mean, are you carrying anything from Montgomery County?
For Montgomery County, Prince George's County, and Baltimore City in particular, we're looking at how police stops occur and how our youth are, in fact, been disadvantaged by the police stops. We're also going to look at educational opportunities and job training. We believe in our community, since we're in a society that believes in small business, that we need to have low-tech incubator programs. So the fact that I or any citizen who wants to start a business can go somewhere where they can find out how to develop a business plan and put proper business techniques into place so they can be successful. We talk about, again, education. We have governors that are talking about lowering college tuition. Well, our kids need to be prepared to go to college. And so they were looking at our high schools and our middle schools and saying, do they have the tools? Do we give our teachers the resources to really do an effective job? So we're looking at indexing issues with the Thornton bill. We need to continue to look at housing, and we need to look at job training.
Well, there you hear it. Mr. James, community activist, civil rights activist, and again, you have a whole list on your resume that I could just name off, but thank you so much for coming up here and blessing us with your presence. And we're back, and I'm joined by the Executive Director of Justice Maryland, my boss, Ms. Kimberly Haven. What's going on?
I'm loving this. I'm thrilled by the discussion, the questions that are being asked, the panelists, the message that's getting out there. I think that Maryland is poised to do some significant reforms coming up, and I'm thrilled that the Legislative Black Caucus was able to bring such a diverse group of people together to have this discussion today.
Now, Justice Maryland was the leading organization to put together both this morning panel, which dealt mostly with drug policy issues, and then the afternoon panel, which will deal more with a democracy issue in the voting rights for the citizens of the state of Maryland. What is Justice Maryland's vision for both topics?
The topic for this morning, Alternatives to Incarceration, is to look at ways to better use the resources that we have to fully fund drug treatment, because we know treatment works, we know prison does not. And to look at ways that we can actually save money by working smarter through sentencing guideline revisions, through the abolishment of mandatory minimums, to revisions to the parole codes. All of those will increase significantly the amount of revenue that's available to the state of Maryland that we can then use to provide community-based treatment programs, which we know we need, which we know works, and it's just being smart on current criminal justice policies. The session this afternoon, the goal is to begin a dialogue about civic participation and the importance of that the right to vote in the state of Maryland and anywhere in this country is not a privilege, that it is a right. And the disenfranchisement laws that we have on the books contribute to a democracy right now that fails to work in Maryland. So the theme for this afternoon is asking the question, Maryland got democracy?
Now, you've been a leading organization, especially when it comes to things that are happening currently in the correctional facilities and things of that sort, the violence that's happening. I know Justice Maryland is there to protect all citizens, correctional officers
Absolutely.
as well as inmates. How can people who are watching be able to get in contact with Justice Maryland to help out, volunteer, or be a part of that process?
Well, we want to be really clear that when we're looking at these things, we're looking at addressing the criminal justice system through the entire spectrum, from pre-release and conditions that exist on the street, all the way through arrest, incarceration, re-entry, and then setting up communities and individuals to be successful. There are a lot of things that people can do and a lot of ways that people can be involved. They can certainly contact our office. We're located in Baltimore City, and our phone number is 410-244-6334, or certainly through our website, which is www.justicemaryland.org.
Okay, well, we're going to have a wonderful day, the second day
Absolutely.
of the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland. I think it's going to be a lot of good, interesting dialogue. Have some
think
heavy
so.
hitters in the morning, have some more heavy hitters in the afternoon, and I think that's what not only the legislators but the citizens of the state of Maryland need.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And we're back. We've had a long day of interesting workshops and interesting dialogue coming out of these workshops. Legislators, panelists, community leaders, and activists have been here sharing their opinions and their values pertaining to drug policy on the front end and restoring the voting rights to those formerly incarcerated on the back end. And I think this is just what's meant to come in January's 2007 legislative session. You know, Nancy Pelosi just said that, you know, it's about time with the Democratic takeover and her ascension to the Speaker of the House that it's about time that a woman cleans out the House. And we've had some strong women here, including the chair, Senator Verna Jones, and those leaders who will be cleaning out Annapolis come January. So it's going to be interesting to see. We'll wait and see. And until then,